Tonight, the grand reopening of a historic Toronto music landmark.
It's just gorgeous inside. I love coming here.
I'm going to be crying for sure.
After a massive revitalization, Massey Hall is welcoming back concert goers for the first time in 3 years, with a Canadian legend taking the stage. Plus,
I'm kind of nervous, but I'm also really excited.
a few nerves as expected as the vaccine rollout for kids ramps up, with some clinics even accepting walk-ins. We'll have the latest on the rollout. And
we're going to have trees till at least the 15th of December. After that, it's going to be very, very tight.
looking for the perfect tree? You might not want to wait. Why buying a Christmas tree this year is harder than in years past. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. The iconic Massey Hall reopened tonight after a massive 3-year, $128 million revitalization. And who better to welcome back audiences than Gordon Lightfoot, the Canadian icon, taking the stage the next 3 nights, a run that will include his, get this, 170th show at the historic venue. Now, our Dale Manukduk is at Massey Hall tonight. And Dale, it's been a long time since anyone has played there.
Well, Kelda, the show is just ending right now. You can see that the last few people are spilling out now. Gordon Lightfoot played one encore song, much to the delight of the audience. He was the perfect person to open up Massey Hall. He was also the last person to play the venue in 2018 before it shut down for renovations. And many of the people I spoke with tonight who attended the show were there for that last one 3 years ago, many affectionately referring to Massey Hall as Gordon's house. And, you know, to be expected, operations were a little bit behind tonight, getting people inside with their vaccine passports. They were running about 30 minutes behind. As for the renovations, it was a tricky balance, preserving the nostalgic elements of a century-old building and getting it ready for the next 100 years. What's old is new. The neon lights switched on, the street lined up around the corner with people itching to get inside.
I remember all the fine work on the top. Last time I was here, there was like chicken wire holding up all the plaster.
There was no bar on the top, so you had to take like 6 flights of stairs downstairs to go to the bar and all the way back up. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like now.
As much excitement as there was to see the new hall, people were equally fired up to see Gordon Lightfoot, who was given the keys to the city by Mayor John Tory.
But now it gives us the opportunity, hopefully in the receding stages of the pandemic, to have something magnificent like this happen, to have this open, because it's going to bring people together again when we couldn't be together even with our own families.
Lightfoot played like he'd done 169 times before at Massey Hall, thrilling the audience with his folk rock vibe. As for the reno, well, the chicken wire is gone, revealing the restored ceiling. The same goes for the stained glass windows, previously hidden by plywood dating back to the 1900s, brought back to its former glory. The floor seats are now retractable, making general admission possible, and the stage was brought closer to the balcony and gallery seats.
Fix everything, change nothing.
Those were the instructions given by musicians to Marianne McKenna, head architect of the project. The mantra quickly went by the wayside. It needed big improvements.
To improve everything about the place, the comfort, the visibility, the acoustics for musicians on the stage, the lighting, and really the technical infrastructure.
Now, McKenna says that Massey Hall is now fit to play more than the typical 80 shows per year. And Kelda, I don't know if you've been to a show here at Massey Hall, but one of the worst experiences about the venue were the bathrooms buried in the basement. They've addressed that too. There's now a 7-story tower at the back of the building with rehearsal and studio space and brand new restrooms that can be accessed through these 2 new outdoor hallways. Kelda?
Oh, I remember the bathrooms. Thank you so much, Dale. That's our Dale Manukduk live for us tonight. The vaccine rollout for kids ramped up today, with many heading to mass vaccination clinics to get their shot. Now, some sites even accepting walk-ins. All this coming at a very critical time before all the holiday gatherings and just as the colder weather keeps more of us indoors. Ali Chiasson has the latest on the rollout and when pharmacies will start offering doses to kids.
I don't want anything to spread around me, and I don't want to get sick.
Tens of thousands of appointments have already been booked this week for kids' vaccines. To meet the demand, Humber River Hospital started walk-in clinics, and there were lineups there too, with a few nervous kids.
Kind of scared. I'm just scared of needles.
And plenty of thrilled parents.
I am so over the moon. I'm so excited so that they can go back to having a normal life.
Know who else is excited about vaccinating 5 to 11-year-olds? Pharmacists.
I do want them to be safe in this community, especially with the COVID spreading again. So I do want to make sure that everybody here is vaccinated.
West King Pharmacy is in an area that was hard hit by COVID earlier in the pandemic.
Pharmacists have played a key role in terms of how we can help people in terms of educating and stuff, and it's the trust really in the community.
Independent pharmacies like this one were given AstraZeneca supply in the early days, but were left out of the mRNA vaccine rollout. Those went to the chain pharmacies.
In the initial rollouts, it was a little bit of hassle, but the government has come a long way.
Many independent pharmacies received their kid-sized doses today.
We got 100 today, and we are one of the initial pilot phase rollouts for the independent pharmacy here.
He says neighborhood families have been clamoring for them.
Very eager. I had at least like 20 phone calls today asking about the vaccine.
So once your kid gets the shot, takes home a candy or a stuffy, what do they do with the certificate or QR code? Turns out, nothing yet.
Because this is such a new rollout and we want parents to feel confident in the decisions that they make and not feel coerced by any means.
The 5 to 11-year-olds who are vaccinated will not have to show proof of vaccination like the older kids and adults do.
Any independent business can make a decision separate from government, but it would be very premature to mandate their inclusion, in my opinion, and I do believe of that of the government, into the verification certification process at present.
And at present, the kids are keeping their eyes on the prize.
I am one step closer to finally being able to go like to parties, going sleepovers. It's like finally getting back to the things that I love.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto long-term care home is now under investigation after a daughter complained about her father's treatment. He's now in hospital, and today inspectors went to the home. It was one of the worst hit homes from earlier in the pandemic that saw the military move in. Lorena Redekop has more.
This week, J.C. Rahala tweeted this, showing her dad's decline in just 7 weeks. She says a day after that first photo, he moved into Hawthorne Place, one of the homes where the military went in to help.
We had to take it because he was on an emergency placement list.
At the home, he was treated for a bladder infection. She says he's prone to them given his Parkinson's disease. But then, weeks later, she became concerned.
He wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, and he has a very good appetite. He was becoming very withdrawn. His urine was very dark, and there was very little urine.
She says she suggested staff test him again, but it didn't happen. Then she called the long-term care complaints line.
She said, we can't guarantee, it might be 3 days, but that's too long of a time to wait.
She worried her father might not make it.
Rahala says she first mentioned her dad's symptoms to long-term care home staff more than a week before he came here to hospital. In the end, she called her family doctor, who recommended she call 911.
It makes me very angry because then when we express our concerns to the staff there, they would be just kind of giving us attitude and just being like very, snippety and, like kind of almost like dismissing us.
She says this morning the long-term care minister called her and told her inspectors were at the home today. In a statement, he called her complaint upsetting and unacceptable and says the inspection report will be made public when it's finished. Hawthorne Place responded with a statement saying it has zero tolerance for any conduct that puts the safety of our residents at risk. All concerns are taken seriously, and we are currently investigating the complaint.
He can't go there. I think right now, like, he would genuinely suffer PTSD syndromes, and he would just ultimately, freak out and just shut down.
JC Rahala expects her dad will be in hospital until at least next week and says they need to find another home for him. She worries about other long-term care residents who don't have family to advocate for them. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Nick, temperatures dropping tonight as a cold front moves through.
Yeah, hi there, Cal. The temperature is definitely dropping tonight. Actually, we hit 7 degrees today, but we're not going to see these temperatures in the near future. When I get to the 5-day forecast, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a look at afternoon highs for today, and I show you that only to tell you what is now in the past. We've got cold weather moving in, rain showers through the overnight switching to snow flurries. That's the blue there. We've got snow squalls setting up across Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. We'll see some flurries in the GTA for tomorrow. They'll taper off by the later afternoon and into the evening hours, but cold weather in place with these northwesterly winds. So forecast-wise, it looks like this. Temperatures down to 0 degrees tonight, rain showers switching to flurries, and then as we head through tomorrow, occasional flurries. Certainly into the afternoon, it begins to clear up. 0 degrees holding steady, wind gusts to about 50 kilometers per hour. Now, that's not it for the snow. We've actually got more snow to talk about in the long-range forecast. That's coming up in just a bit. Kelda.
Thanks so much, Nick. Internal forecast done by the Ford government revealed that Ontario is nowhere near on track to hit its climate change targets. They show that many of the emissions cuts promised by the government are not set to happen. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley explains.
Ontario pumps out double the greenhouse gas emissions of its next-door neighbor Quebec, despite a population that's less than twice Quebec's size.
The carbon tax is the worst tax ever.
And despite all those complaints about carbon pricing by Premier Doug Ford,
today is the last day to fill up your gas tank before the federal carbon tax.
His government actually promised to match the federal climate change targets for 2030. Ontario's plan calls for cutting annual emissions by more than 17 megatons. The Environment Ministry's own forecasts now say that the Ford government's commitments will bring less than 1/5 of that.
I mean, there's basically nothing that they're following through on that's going to reduce emissions in any meaningful way.
The Environment Ministry's emission forecasts have been kept from the public until this week when the Auditor General revealed them. This climate campaigner says cutting emissions is not a priority for the Ford government.
The Auditor General has shown they're not following through on the plan, and now her latest report shows that they know, in fact, that they are nowhere close to meeting their own targets to fight climate change.
The Environment Minister sees things differently.
Ontario is the only province in our federation, even remotely, on target for 2030. We're making excellent progress. We lead Canada in greenhouse gas reduction, and it's because we're working with industry. We're working with all Ontarians. I mean, we're leaving no stone unturned in reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
I asked the minister, can you look Ontarians in the eye and say you'll actually hit the targets?
I can look Ontarians in the eye and say Ontario is a leader in greenhouse gas emissions reduction in this federation.
No promise, though, to hit the targets.
It is completely insufficient to deal with the scale of the challenge we face.
Ontario's emissions were on a steady decline for a decade. That changed after the Ford government got elected in 2018. More recently, the government has announced measures to help a large steel plant in Sault Ste. Marie cut its use of fossil fuels and changes that could help the cement industry reduce its emissions. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Looking for a Christmas tree? You may want to start earlier this year. Farmers and retailers across Ontario say they're facing a shortage. And while experts say climate change and the pandemic are big factors, demand is also higher than ever. Samantha Beatty has more.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas at this Toronto garden centre.
I'm pricing trees right now, but I'm also looking for garland and a wreath and stuff like that.
They are busier than ever, having sold more than 450 trees in just 10 days.
Going to have trees till at least the 15th of December. After that, it's going to be very, very tight.
Clark and other sellers across the GTA are facing a Christmas tree shortage.
Getting people to deliver, it's the main challenge. It's getting product to one place to another place. And ample times.
Transportation costs are up, and that will be passed on to customers.
Well, the prices on the trees are surprising to me. It seems a little bit more. Seems more than I remember from last year and the year before.
There's some gorgeous ones here.
Wildfires out west, late spring frosts out east, and droughts in Ontario have impacted trees big and small.
In any farming, Mother Nature is your silent partner, and she hasn't been very cooperative in the last few years.
This is a Scotch pine, and it has a little longer needles, and it's the old favorite of many years ago for this part of Canada.
At this tree farm in Milton, where they grow spruce and pine, Brad Clements has stocked his barn full of fir trees shipped in from northern Ontario. That's because fir won't thrive in this region's soil.
We run out and we have no, if they want a Fraser fir, we won't have it type of thing. So they would have to go and get a spruce or a pine.
It takes about 10 years for these trees to grow, and a decade ago, no one anticipated a pandemic would push up demand.
The trees have gone up, some of them not too much, some of them fairly significant.
He says customers should expect to pay about 20% more, and hopes he has enough to sell right up to Christmas Eve, but this year there's no guarantee. Samantha Beattie, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. The city is reviewing its animal bylaws, everything from feeding wild animals to which animals people can keep as pets. Now, this comes after police in North York were forced to shoot a coyote that had attacked 3 people earlier this week. Greg Ross has more.
It was a dramatic scene that played out earlier this week. Police were called to a North York neighborhood to shoot a coyote that had attacked 3 people. Just days later, the city is reviewing a number of its animal bylaws.
The timing couldn't be better.
Yeah, I mean, it has helped to bring it to the forefront.
Dr. Esther Attard is the director of Animal Services. She says it's a coincidence that the review was released on the heels of those coyote attacks, but says they are reviewing some related issues.
We're looking to amend feeding of wildlife, for instance. We're looking to amend that to public and private spaces rather than just in parks, because there have been issues around feeding of wildlife.
She says one of the big reasons there has been a rise in residential coyote sightings around the city is because people are feeding them. In this West End neighborhood near James Colnan Catholic School, some residents have gone so far as to post signs asking people to stop leaving food for wild animals.
I was out for a walk early last week and still saw sausages laying right about where you're standing at.
Ed Van Hooydonk has not only seen the food people have been leaving, he's seen the coyotes that have been coming for it.
I was just looking out the front door at about 6 in the morning 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there was a fairly big coyote about, 2.5, 3 feet tall.
He says people in his neighborhood would support amendments to the bylaws.
Having them running down the street, where we have young kids and where we have small dogs. I mean, we've heard that cats have gone missing on the street, so obviously it is a problem.
I think definitely they should be changed. In fact, I think they should cull them. I don't think we can live together in the same space for everyone to be safe.
Wildlife experts say coyotes have access to plenty of food and don't need help from humans.
It will also create a dependency on humans. So just like how your family dog might come to you for treats and all sorts of things, coyotes aren't domesticated, so they still might come to you for food, but with maybe a less friendly way of doing so.
Some of the other bylaws the city is reviewing include pet licensing, how many pets people can own, and what types of pets are allowed. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. Cloudy tonight with light rain. Temperatures will dip overnight. Currently, though, holding steady at 6 degrees. Let's go back to Nick now with a look at your extended forecast. And Nick, bracing for colder temperatures tomorrow and some flurries.
Colder temperatures and flurries on the way, Calda. That's basically sums up our weather headlines here. We've got flurries in the forecast. Get your warm weather clothes out for tomorrow, and some Sunday snowfall that we're going to talk about coming up in just a bit here. Now, in terms of tomorrow, it's really just flurries if you live down around the GTA. If you're coming in from the north, though, expect to see some more in the way of accumulating snows. Rain showers in the GTA switch to snow flurries, and then with these northwesterly winds, snow squalls set up. Doesn't look like it's a really solid setup for snow squalls, but definitely the potential for seeing a few centimeters of snowfall accumulating with these in the lee of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, potentially upwards to about 10 centimeters of snow. Now, that sort of tapers off as we head toward the evening hours, and then into Saturday, I think we are going to see a little bit in the way of sunshine, but also some flurries as well, particularly toward the afternoon. And then another system starts to move in. This one, not so much Saturday afternoon, but into Saturday overnight, and Sunday brings with it some snowfall. And the model's a little bit undecided on exactly how much we're going to see with this, but there is certainly the potential for 5+ centimeters of snow. So in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 centimeters, especially if the temperatures hover around that 0 mark. Watch for that coming up over the weekend. Wind gusts tonight up to 50 kilometers per hour into tomorrow morning, and they stay that way until about Saturday. Southwestern Ontario down to -2 with a few flurries, and then tomorrow looking at flurries and a high of about 0 or 1 degree. For the GTA tonight, we've got temperatures around the Golden Horseshoe that will be around that 0 mark, and then into tomorrow we've got a high again of just 0, hold steady. 1s across the board. Sunday is the one to watch, but otherwise not looking at any real warm-up in the next 5 days. Kelda.
Thanks so much, Nick. Finally tonight, a new honor today for one of Canada's most decorated writers. Canada Post unveiled a special stamp for literary giant Margaret Atwood at the Toronto Reference Library this afternoon. Atwood is one of the country's most prolific and celebrated authors. Her works include more than 50 books of poetry, fiction, critical essays, and graphic novels. The 82-year-old most known for her dystopian depictions of societies like The Handmaid's Tale, the award-winning novel that's been turned into a massive hit television series. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Talia Ricci has you covered at 11. Have a great night, everyone.